Okay, so welcome everyone to the first episode of the Philippine Cricket Podcast. Today's special guest is Daniel Smith, current vice captain of the Philippine men's national cricket team. So welcome, Dan. A little bit of background on Dan. He's played quite a lot of high-level cricket. He's played for Kent's second 11 for 2 seasons in England, also representing Hampshire's second 11. He's played for New South Wales second 11 and Premier Cricket in Sydney for Gordon. He has over 180 wickets in first grade. He has a high score for Kent second 11 of 109 not out and a couple of thousand runs as well to go with it. So welcome to the show, Dan. How are you today?
I'm doing well, mates. Having a nice, relaxing weekend here in Sydney.
Very
what about
good.
yourself? Doing well over there?
Yeah, not too bad. It's good to be doing something. And while we're in ECQ here, it's a challenging time for people here, but good to be able to share a bit of what happens in cricket and a little bit of background on our players, including yourself.
Yeah.
So just to get started, Dan, could you tell us a little bit about growing up, how you got involved in cricket? Like, what's your early memories of cricket?
Well, I think like most cricketers out there, I've played cricket for as long as I can remember. So I probably picked up a bat or a ball when I was about 3, 4, or 5 years old. And I would have done so because my older brothers were being introduced to the game. So I just wanted to be like them. So I bowled them a few balls in the backyard, faced a few balls from them. And then, I would have been about maybe 7 or 8 years old when I played my first game. So I remember I was watching one of my brother's games and one of his players got sick. So they asked me to come on as a replacement and they chucked me the ball. I got a couple of wickets, which I was pretty stoked with at the time. After that, what happened after that? Eventually started playing school cricket each Saturday. Club cricket usually followed on Sundays, and that was my weekend for many years until I finally finished high school and started playing Premier Cricket with Gordon. So that would have been in 2010.
Yeah, cool. So kind of moving on to Gordon then, you started in 2010, spent around 8 or 9 seasons with Gordon, mostly playing first grade. So can you tell me a little bit about maybe some of the players you played with there, what the experience is in stepping up from club cricket to Premier Cricket, and what kind of you learned through that process?
It's obviously a big step up going from school cricket where you have a few cowboys playing who just sort of swing the bat and get runs. A lot of average bowlers, so it's easy to pick off runs and all that. And then making the step up to Premier Cricket was a massive step up out of school. We played against a lot of the New South Wales players at the time. I remember one game we played against Sutherland Cricket Club, and they had Phil Jakes, Nick Maddinson, Shane Watson, Steve Smith, Adam Zampa. There's probably a few other good players in there. And that game actually got rained out, so I was pretty disappointed with that. That's the sort of caliber of players that you come across in that grade scene. I remember my first few games for first grade for Gordon. I sort of felt out of my depth. I sort of thought, like, how long is it until I get dropped down to second grade or third grade where I actually belong? The guys at Gordon were very welcoming. I just worked really hard and was able to make that step up and put in a few good performances, which I was really happy with as a kid coming into men's cricket.
And so with kind of the hard work that goes with it, what are some of the things kind of that maybe are overlooked by a lot of people when people see like a Steve Smith or an Adam Zampa or some of those guys that do go on a long way further than just grade or Premier Cricket? What are some of the things you learnt in Premier Cricket that kind of give you that platform to step up?
I think one of the first things as a bowler that you learn is that your bad balls get punished, and your good balls also sometimes get punished.
Yeah.
So yeah, as a bowler, it's about being relentlessly patient with your line and lengths. Just loving the grind, I guess. We play on some very flat pitches in Sydney grade cricket. And you just got to love running in from the 30-yard circle, bashing a length, and hopefully getting the rewards. Even if you don't get rewards, then hopefully the person at the other end gets the rewards for the team. So yeah, it's not always skill based. A lot of it is just being willing to put up your hand when things aren't going great, when the opposition are 1 for 300, and just trying to do your job for the team. It sounds really cliche, but that's what it's all about.
Well, there you go, young fellas. If there's any young boys or girls listening, it's a lot of consistency. So that consistency saw you about 5 years after you started playing first grade cricket to get the opportunity to go over to the UK to play for Kent's county side in their second 11. So can you tell me a little bit about your time spending 2 seasons in England playing with Kent and Hampshire?
Yeah, it was always, I guess, part of the plan, because I have a British passport through my dad, to one day relocate over to the United Kingdom, play some cricket over there. I have an uncle who lives in Canterbury in Kent. Okay. So that was like really helpful. I ended up living right next to him. So, whenever you sort of get lonely living overseas, you don't really know anyone, it's good to have family over there. And then, yeah, being part of a squad where you travel around all over the UK playing cricket 4, 5, sometimes 6 days a week. It was pretty unreal. And then traveling home on a Friday night so that you can play your club cricket on Saturday and sometimes Sunday. So you're playing some weeks you're playing 6 or 7 days per week. So it really takes it out of you. But the whole experience was really fun. And it was really good opportunity to play with guys who have gone on to represent England. So one of the players that I got to play with was Zach Crawley. Okay. And he was still in high school at the time, but you could tell just by watching him bat and the time that he had and all that he was always destined for higher honors. And it's really good to watch him, especially against Pakistan, where he peeled off, I think, like 270. Yeah, it's really good to see players like that go on and make the most of their opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. And alongside that, not only did you represent a few second 11 sides in England, but also you got the opportunity to represent your home state side, New South Wales, in a second 11 match. What's the kind of experience like as a kid growing up in Sydney to take that step to be in that kind of top 22 players in your state almost for a period of time? What's that experience like, especially getting to play against Victoria too?
Yeah, I think initially it can be somewhat daunting, somewhat intimidating. Just as you said, you're playing against some of the best cricketers in the country, and you question whether you're good enough for it. And in that game that I got to represent the New South Wales Twos, we were prepared the flattest pitches, the flattest pitch in all eternity. So yeah, it was a real grind, 4 days of cricket on a real flat pitch. But it was, looking back on my cricket career, that's definitely one of the highlights, is getting to represent my states, pull on the baggy blue, and then just give it a red hot crack.
And speaking of highlights, it kind of segues nicely into part of what we want to talk about today, which is how did you get involved in Philippine cricket, and kind of being somebody that's been around Philippine cricket for quite a while now, like what's that experience been like? So if you could maybe just start with how that started for you, and then maybe talk about how that's progressed since.
Yeah, I do love telling the story. So back in about 2011 or 2012, 10 years ago now, so I was playing cricket for Gordon in Sydney, and at the time, our captain, John O'Heal, was living about 100 metres up the road. So he went for a walk one Saturday and he walked past our game, and I was fielding on the boundary at the time. So he came up to me, we start chatting. He eventually asked me what my background is, and I tell him I'm half Filipino. And he's like, dude, you realize Philippines have a cricket team? So I tell him, no, I had no idea that the game of cricket was played in the Philippines or anywhere in the East Asia Pacific region for that matter. So yeah, from there, I think maybe a year or two passes, and I travel over to the Philippines because my brother was living in Makati at the time. And yeah, at that time, that's when I first met Ian Sinclair and Faisal. So I just went and had a beer with them at the pub, and they told me a little bit more about cricket in the Philippines. And then, yeah, maybe a couple of years pass again. And the Philippines had a qualifying tournament in Lismore here in Australia. And so they invited me to play a couple of the friendly games against Japan and Fiji, because I wasn't qualified at the time, so I couldn't actually play in the tournament. So yeah, that was my first experience of pulling on the Filipino playing shirt for the first time.
And kind of from there, I mean, obviously it's a proud moment for anyone to represent their country. But from there, you've kind of blossomed into one of the leaders of the Philippine Carabao side. So can you kind of tell me a little bit about how that experience progressed? So from there, you were picked for a tour, I believe, in Hong Kong, and then
yeah. So in 2015, we had a tour to Hong Kong, and we stayed in some lovely 5-star accommodation, which had really good air conditioning and other first-class amenities. That's a joke. The accommodation was terrible. But yeah, it was awesome. We got to play against Hong Kong, which are a really strong side. So I think we lost the first game, and then we played against their under-19 side, and I think we won that one. It's all a little bit fuzzy to me at this stage. So yeah, that was back in 2015, and then I think a year or two after that, there was a World Cup qualifier in Bendigo, where we didn't perform as well as we would have liked, but there was a clear improvement between Bendigo and Lismore some years prior, even between Bendigo and Hong Kong. So yeah, even though we didn't perform that well, there was this sort of underlying momentum within the squad, I guess, this underlying feeling that we were building to something a lot bigger than what we sort of imagined a few years before that. And I think that sort of showed when we hosted Indonesia, South Korea, and Japan at Friendship Oval in 2018, and we were able to come away with a victory in that tournament, and then obviously in our most recent tournament in Port Moresby, where we were able to get one up over Vanuatu.
Yeah, brilliant. So, I mean, holding the tournament in the Philippines that was the first time the Philippines had ever hosted a major event for cricket. Yeah. So you've spoke briefly about someone that we all love here called Ian Sinclair, who was the coach for a very long time. And as you say, that kind of improvement went from Lismore to Bendigo, and then Bendigo to the Philippines, which culminated in the Philippines winning their first ever tournament. So for someone like Ian, who wasn't able to make it and had sadly just lost his battle with cancer, what was the feeling like around the squad, both honoring Ian in that tournament, but also getting the opportunity to qualify for Papua New Guinea and take that next step towards success for Philippine cricket?
Yeah, there was a lot of emotion that went into that tournament, as you said, with the passing of Ian Sinclair, who had done so much for cricket in the country, but also so much for myself and a couple of the other players in terms of getting us qualified. He's been so instrumental in that. And then, yeah, as you said, it was the first time that the Philippines had hosted a tournament in the country. So there was also emotion about that, and it was such a huge opportunity for us to try and win the tournament and try and generate some positive stories, which could be disseminated throughout the media. Our quest to grow the game of cricket in the Philippines. I looking back, I just have these vivid memories of grabbing onto the Philippines flag in the change room, really trying to soak in Jono's words as we before we took the field, and then Sonny, who absolutely bowled the house down in that tournament. Basically, for those people who didn't get to see any of the games, pretty much every single game came down to the final over or the final ball, and every single time Sonny stepped up to the plate and he got us home. And I think Henry got us home one time, but we'll focus on Sonny, all the great work that Sonny did.
We all love the Pampanga Express. So going from there, I guess that was a big step in Philippine cricket to kind of announce ourselves as a country that can really compete in our region. So to set the scene for where that led us as a cricketing nation, so there was a tournament that qualified us for in Papua New Guinea, facing an extremely strong Papua New Guinea squad and also a very strong Vanuatu squad. So a little bit of background for those people that maybe don't know how that tournament came about. There was flooding in Papua New Guinea, and the ground condition, Cricket PNG did a terrific job in getting it into playing shape, but it wasn't exactly what you'd usually expect. But going into that, we had, I think, a loss to PNG, which was an eye-opener probably for the squad. And then a reasonably close game with Vanuatu. We're pretty unlucky against PNG when it looked like we might have a chance on Duckworth-Lewis before the game was called off. And then just to set that scene, so we go into the final match against Vanuatu with a chance of attaining second place. So for yourself, as someone that's an opening bowler, usually a lower middle order batsman, what was the experience like of taking the bull by the horns, so to speak, and opening the batting in a 5-over match and just going ape with it?
Yeah, really enjoyed it, to say the least. I guess before the game, there was this sort of feeling that it was so wet, like we're probably not going to get a game. And then I think Jono, Faisal, and Vanuatu staff, they sort of got together and they said, like, we're here to play cricket. Let's try and get a 5-over game in. And I think at the time we were just sort of playing soccer or whatever. We were pretty certain we weren't going to get a game. But then Jono came over and he said, right, lads, switch on. We're playing a 5-over game. And just like that, we did switch on, and we thought, like, anything could happen in these 5 overs. We are a real chance here. And so, yeah, Jono dished out a few licenses to the batsmen to go berserk. And we were able to get a few clean shots away. So we batted first. And yeah, we got a few clean shots away, and that really gave us a lot of momentum. I can't remember how many runs we put on, maybe about 40 odd. And yeah, so when it was our turn to bowl to Vanuatu, there was that feeling that we've got the runs on the board, we've got all the momentum. 5 overs, if we get 1 or 2 quick wickets, we are right in this. And that's exactly what we did. Like, we had 5 overs, we all bowled very consistently. We put everything that we could into those 5 overs in the field. And yeah, it was such a good feeling to beat Vanuatu, because, you know, between Vanuatu and the Philippines, there has been a little bit of history. So it was such a good feeling to get a win over them.
Yeah, excellent. And kind of going from there, that puts us in second place in the East Asia Pacific when it comes to rankings, just behind Papua New Guinea, which is an amazing achievement for the Philippines. With a tour coming up later this year, I think October, which will see the entire region minus PNG battle it out for a spot in the global qualifiers. Could you tell us a little bit from the Australian end, where there's not as many restrictions, what it's been like to kind of prepare over there, and how the warm-up event you had went with a few days of training and matches?
Yep. So 9 of us, I think 9 or 10 of us, throughout the eastern states of Australia, so Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria. So we all decided to get together for a 3-day training camp. So 1 day of training, 2 days of games, which happened last week. So we played against Blacktown Cricket Club for a couple of days. And I sort of had a conversation with Jono last weekend, I think it was, and we both came to the conclusion that basically we could not have got more out of those 3 days than what we did. The guys were unbelievable in the amount of effort that they put in. By the 3rd day, we were all so exhausted. It was basically just mental toughness that got us through that game. We were all hobbling about. But yeah, it was an unreal experience to finally get together again after the last time we got together would have been in Papua New Guinea. To finally get together again, play some cricket. And even though we didn't come away with any wins, like I said, we couldn't have got more out of those 3 days than what we did. And building from Lismore back in 2014 to Hong Kong in 2015 to Bendigo, to the Philippines, to Port Moresby, and then to now, there's clearly this feeling within the group that with each year we are improving, and we're getting closer and closer as a group. And yeah, I know just myself and the other players, the Australian-based players, we just can't wait to get together again for the next tournament. Hopefully it goes ahead in October in Japan, because there's this real momentum behind us at the moment, and we're confident that we can put in some really strong performances and come away as the victors of that tournament.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So for those who might want to get involved, if they're Australians, what we'll do is we'll have a link down below to how you can contact us, as it's a growing group of overseas-based Filipinos that are involved in cricket with the Philippines as well as local players. So could you speak a little bit about the squad, as in Australian-based players? What's it like as a group to come together and kind of, I know Jono's big on it as the captain, and I'm sure yourself as vice captain are helping him with that, but kind of what it means to be Filipinos and to come together as a Filipino community in Australia. What's that kind of experience like?
Yeah, so when we first met on that first day, we sort of talked about what it means to play for the Philippines and the values that we share as a playing group. And Jono spoke very well to the group about how much it means to him. And I know a lot of the other players, like just through being able to represent the Philippines, it's given them sort of a higher purpose in life, if you will. For others, it's allowed others like myself, it's allowed me to sort of rediscover my love of cricket, because I've had a few years of grinding away in grade cricket, which isn't a very enjoyable experience, going from fine leg to fine leg, none for 100 at the end of the day. But yeah, it really is like an absolute honor to pull on the Philippine playing shirt and represent the Philippines. And as I said before, like, we all just cannot wait to get stuck in again, because this is the most enjoyable cricket that any of us plays.
Yeah, that's excellent. So before we kind of wrap up, a couple of things. First, I want to give you a little bit of a self-gratuitous opportunity to kind of explain how this happened. But you had an opportunity, I believe it was 2016, to play for a Hampshire 11 against Pakistan, and took 3 wickets, including one of my personal favorite cricketers, Azhar Ali. So considering that he was able to score a Boxing Day double century unbeaten against Australia, what makes you so good as a cricketer that you can get him out?
He just bowled a full straight one and he missed it. Simple.
Brilliant.
It's a simple game. Don't overcomplicate it. Just bowl at the stumps and maybe he'll miss one. Yeah, that was such an unreal experience. That's probably like the highlight of my cricketing career, is getting to play against a Pakistan 11, featuring players like Azhar Ali and Yunus Khan and all that. And yeah, I somehow got 3 wickets. I just sort of bowled the house down that day. So
excellent.
Yeah, pretty stoked with that.
So we'll hope to see you replicated in October then.
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
Excellent.
Hopefully a few batsmen miss straight ones. Hopefully.
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
So just before we wrap up, a couple of things. So one last kind of Philippine question. You've had the opportunity to come to the Philippines quite a few times now. Could you kind of, for people that maybe have never been to the Philippines, that when travel gets a bit easier and things are more settled, that might decide to come here, could you suggest a few places that you visited that like really you enjoyed, you had a great time in? Like, where's a few places you'd recommend on someone's bucket list if they'd visit the Philippines?
Yeah, I'd say like probably the number one place would be Palawan. So Henry, Tyler and myself, we traveled there probably back in 2015. And yeah, we just spent a few days sort of exploring Palawan Island, which was really cool. The scenery is pretty unreal, so I would highly recommend that to anyone. Also, when we went and had our tournaments, we stayed down in Tagaytay, which was it's a really cool place. Getting to ride in the tuk-tuks and all that. And a few of the players, we climbed the Taal volcano. And yeah, I got some pictures of that, and it's such a beautiful spot. And it was so unfortunate to hear a few years ago, or a couple of years ago, can't remember, that the volcano exploded. And yeah, there was quite a few deaths around Tagaytay. Then yeah, I think sort of around maybe 2014 or sometime around then, I got to visit Iloilo, which is the area that my mum grew up. So I got to see family members who I've never seen before. Mum's the youngest of 10, I think. So yeah, there was all these family members that I never seen before in the sort of 20 years that I'd spent growing up, and I finally got to meet them for the first time. So yeah, those are 3 areas which I really enjoyed, and I would recommend to anyone planning to visit.
Absolutely. Brilliant. So just to kind of round things off completely, cricket's a wonderful sport, and we all of us that are on this show enjoy it. But Philippines is a amateur squad, so players play because they're passionate about representing the Philippines, about lifting up the country. So can you tell me a little bit of what does life look outside of cricket for Dan Smith? What's kind of a regular week for Dan Smith outside of playing cricket?
Yeah, well, I did a law degree at university, so I'm currently working 2 part-time jobs. So the main one is working for a barrister. So that's the person who speaks in court. So just helping him in chambers with his caseload, legal research and all that stuff. And the other job that I have is volunteering in a environmental legal centre, because I'm pretty passionate about the environment. So yeah, I really enjoy helping them out with their caseloads and all that. Outside of work, I've recently gotten into snowboarding.
Okay.
So not very good, but before the pandemic, I got to travel Europe a little bit. So I did a bit of skiing in Austria. And then last year I hit the slopes in Australia. And so I tried snowboarding for the first time and absolutely loved it. So yeah, I guess the general plan over the next few years is to try and travel to maybe Canada, Japan, and hopefully get back to Europe and do a bit more snowboarding around the world, and hopefully win a few more tournaments for the Philippines Cricket Association as well.
Brilliant. So on behalf of Philippine Cricket TV, I'd just like to thank Dan for coming on the show. We wish you all the best moving forward, inside and outside your cricketing career. And thank you everyone else for watching. Hopefully we'll hear more news soon about the tournament in October, and it should be live streamed. So it'd be excellent to have some support of people being able to jump online and support us from wherever they find themselves in the world. So until episode 2 comes out, well, take care. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Dan. Peace.
Thanks, Evan. See ya.